I always think of soapwort as a sort of back-to-school flower. It's so typical of late August and September. And although it has its origins in cultivation, it's well established as a wildflower, familiar to the observant motorist, because it grows in clumped profusion by the side of the road, where its attractive pink blossoms are one of the most eye-catching sights at this floristically rather dull time of year. Now, in fact, the clumps are probably all clones, because soapwort spreads mainly and quite aggressively by means of its underground stems or rhizomes, which make it in fact quite difficult to eradicate if it becomes troublesome in gardens. Now, soapwort is quite typical of its stitchwort or carnation family. So when we look at the flowers, we expect to find 5 petals and 10 stamens in 2 groups of 5, one group maturing before the other. But when you look at these flowers, you can see that there are lots and lots of petals. And if we look for the stamens, you will see that they look somewhat abortive and rather petal-like. What happens is this. All the organs of the flower, the sepals, the petals, the stamens and carpels, are all derived from leaf-like or petal-like antecedents. And it sometimes happens that a genetic mutation allows a set of organs that would normally develop as stamens to revert to a more petal-like form. And that is what has happened in this case. And the derived form is sometimes thought to be more attractive than the natural wild form, so it is selected and propagated by plant breeders on that account. But of course, it means that it can only be propagated vegetatively because it doesn't produce seed. The more flouncy double form of soapwort is often referred to by the popular name of bouncing bet. And this is the natural wild form of soapwort. Here are the 5 petals, each divided into a flat pink blade, and at right angles to that there's a long thin claw about 20 millimeters long, and the 5 claws are held together to form a narrow tube by the fused sepals, these greenish things with the reddish flecks at the back. Now, this will be a lot clearer if I dissect out the flower. So we'll just take one of the flowers here and we'll dissect it out. First of all, we'll remove the sepals. Sepals are fused at the back, so if we tear those back away, there's one of them gone, and there I've pulled back the fused tube of the calyx, the sepals now, and you can see the way in which each petal is divided into a blade at the top, the pink part, and then at right angles to that you have a long thin claw, about 20 millimeters long. In the center you can see there are the 10 stamens, and in the very heart of the flower there's the ovary, and at the top of it you can see the 2 styles and stigmas. At this stage of the flower they're still closely pressed together. And notice at the junction between the blade and the claw there's a little forked lappet structure. As soon as the flower opens, the 5 outer stamens protrude a few millimeters in front of the entrance to the corolla tube, dehiscing upwards to shed their pollen. And after a day, they move to the side out of the way, their place being taken by the 5 inner stamens, which do the same thing. Only then do the 2 styles emerge from the corolla tube and the stigmas move apart to expose their receptive upper surfaces. The depth of the corolla tube restricts access to the nectar at the bottom to hawk moths, such as the privet hawk moth and the hummingbird hawk moth. The flowers have a fragrant odour, which is much stronger at night time. The tongues of butterflies could reach the nectar, but they are not attracted to the flowers. The colour and scent do not appeal to them, and there are no nectar guides. Soapwort is widely distributed in Europe and in Asia. and was probably introduced into England towards the end of the 16th century, according to John Gerard, primarily for ornamenting houses. But it had a quite wide range of medicinal applications as well, for skin infections, for jaundice and for rheumatism. But it was almost certainly because of its soap making properties that it was introduced, because a gentle soap can be made, and was widely made, from the roots and other parts of the plant. In fact, there's strong scientific evidence that the fabric conditioner used over many centuries of careful conservation of the Shroud of Turin was soapwort.